Hello everybody, welcome back to Planet X News. It is December 8th, 2020. Well, ladies and gentlemen, if you've been following what's happening out there on the sun, you know by now that there was a pretty large and significant coronal mass ejection, which is directly headed towards the Earth. What the impacts will be, it's kind of hard to say at this point in time, but this is something that I've been talking about in my videos and live streams for many years now, and we've seen Earth-facing coronal mass ejections before. Unfortunately, this time we're in this solar minimum where the Earth's magnetic field is at a lower strength. Let's just put it that way. So the impacts to the Earth are going to be more significant. What I'm predicting that we will probably see is, I would say definitely an increase in earthquake activity. And actually, I've been monitoring that for the last 12 hours now, and that has already picked up. I also was able to capture some pretty vital data from this coronal mass ejection and the day before. And I'll get into those photographs and I'll show you all of them. But what you're looking at right now in your thumbnail, what's on your screen right now, is, in my opinion, the direct root cause for this massive coronal mass ejection. It's signified by the yellow arrow on your screen. Once again, completely 100% undeniable. The other photographs that I'm going to show you in a little bit are quite amazing. And once again, simply undeniable. So the big questions are arising. Yes, the sun is slowly coming out of this solar minimum and becoming more active. But I was looking at a few charts and graphs that are put out by NOAA, and that kind of tracks the activity of this solar minimum going into the solar maximum. And all of a sudden, within this past 2 months, we've had a really, really big spike in this progression leading from the solar minimum to the solar maximum. See, folks, we still have a few years to go, but each and every day, that progression, it's just like the arms on your clock. It just ticks away. But I do find this very strange. I did think about this quite a bit, and I've talked about it on my YouTube channel, I'd say for, the last 2 years, and this past year, and the past 6 months. I've been mentioning it more frequently about what is going to happen when the sun is moving out of this solar minimum and into a solar maximum. Are we going to see more catastrophic explosions and impacts to the Earth because of the interaction of these large stellar cores, which nobody will admit, in the professional science neighborhoods, they just won't admit, nor will they show you this data or this evidence. What are they expecting? Do they even know? Well, we are seeing some of it. It's playing out in live time. But let's go ahead and take a look at what they're saying about this on space weather. I'll go ahead and jump out of this, and let's move over here, and let's see what they're saying about this on spaceweathernews.com over here. We have it right here: Earth-directed solar flare and CME. And it says sunspot AR 2790 is more potent than it looks. Yesterday, December 7th, at 16:32 Universal Time, the relatively small spot, they're referring to this sunspot, unleashed a C7 class solar flare and hurled a coronal mass ejection, or CME, towards the Earth. Extreme ultraviolet cameras on board NASA's Solar Dynamics Observatory recorded the explosion. And you could see it right here. Now, what I've done, I'm going to go ahead and jump on it here. I have all of this information for you from the SDO. I have it in a larger version so you can see it. Now, over here at SolarHam, they have a little bit more information, and they've circled the sunspot that had the explosion, and that again is from the SDO. And it says over here, CME update: updated coronagraph imagery is now trickling in following the eruption of AR 2790. AR refers to active region. And again, that was on Monday. It says a full halo Earth-facing coronal mass ejection is clearly evident, and this means our planet's geomagnetic field should experience an impact as early as Wednesday, meaning tomorrow. So we're going to go ahead and chart that out here in a little bit. A geomagnetic disturbance, quite possibly reaching storm levels, should be expected. And naturally, for all the folks that are aurora watchers, by midweek, they are going to have one hell of a show way up in the northern hemispheres. So we'll go ahead and jump out of here, and we're going to take a very close-up look at the Solar Dynamics Observatory. And this is a composite view. I like to use this view because it's a composite of the, let me show you here. The 171, the 193, and the 211. These are different angstroms of light. These are all composed together, and it gives you a pretty damn good view. Now, you can see this active region right here. Something we're going to see later on is this was like a 1-2 punch. So there was the initial filament release, and then the coronal mass ejection came afterwards. And I'm going to show you the spiral graph, the CME prediction model. And these two events were very, very close together in time. And then just before they impact the Earth, they blend together. So this is going to be one hell of an impact. Now, look, this is not an Earth-ending event or anything of that magnitude. Something like this at this level is not going to take down power grids and so on and so forth. But something like this does have the potential to create massive earthquakes and possibly a multitude of volcanic eruptions. Now, the earthquakes may come as soon as late Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. The volcanic eruptions may take a little longer. But this is something that can produce those higher magnitude sevens, which we all know are very destructive and could be the leading cause of loss of life. So this gives you a pretty good look at what's occurring right here. Now the Earth, well, right where my cursor is, right about here. We're just below the equatorial region of the sun. So we're about right here. So yeah, you may think that this looks like it would be a glancing blow. Don't let anybody fool you. The expansion of this coronal mass ejection is very large, and it is going to just swallow up the Earth and pass on by. But it will definitely leave a mark. There's no doubt about it. Let's scroll down, and we will take a look at the 335. This gives you, just let me bump this up a little bit. This will give you another view in a different view of extreme ultraviolet light. Right here, there's the first shot, and then there's the second shot. And we're going to go ahead and keep on moving down. We'll give you some different views of this. Again, the first shot you just saw, and then right behind it, the coronal mass ejection. There is a lot of activity going on here. You can see the massive loops, plasma loops, connecting, reconnecting, connecting, reconnecting. And there's another sunspot following right behind it right here. And we will take a look at the 211. And you may start to see on the 211, you may see some of the disturbance and the separation of the sun's outer atmosphere. You'll kind of get black, and you'll see something like this coronal hole here. But we'll be able to see that better on the 171. In this view on the 131, this is easier to detect X-rays. And there were no X-rays, or excuse me, not X-rays, X-flares that came from this coronal mass ejection, thank God. But it does give you a pretty good view of what is happening. And there was the coronal mass ejection again right there. This is the 304. It's a little hard to see that first filament release, but then you can see the coronal mass ejection, and it kind of spews a little bit in this direction, but it does expand, and we'll see that on the spiral graphs. This is the 193, and again, you'll see the initial filament release, and then you'll see the coronal mass ejection as it starts to rotate to the eastern limb. That was a pretty good blast. I mean, I've seen much, much larger. Now, on the 171, see this darker area here? This is an area all through here where pretty much the sun's outer atmosphere has already been pushed away by all of the activity in this region. But as that initial coronal mass ejection blows off, you'll see that darker region kind of expands a little bit, almost like a coronal hole. You could literally just see it move. It's pretty interesting. Now, as we progress further into this solar maximum, and we continue, well, the sun continues to have these interactions with these stellar cores, or at least this main stellar core object. These coronal mass ejections are going to get much larger, 10 times, 20 times, 50 times, possibly even 100 times stronger. Like I mentioned in my past live stream, the laws of probability eventually will catch up with us, and the Earth is going to be in the wrong place at the wrong time, like what we're discussing today. Because tomorrow, the Earth is going to have and receive this impact. And again, it's not going to be an Earth-ending event, but the potential for catastrophic earthquakes and volcanic activity will exist, and we will probably, most definitely, see that. Okay, let's move out of here. And this is what I wanted to show you. I'm going to go ahead and blow this up just a bit. Oops. Let me get it just a little bit larger. Now, this is what I was talking about here. We have the sun here in the middle, the Earth here in green. You're going to see the coronal mass ejection. Well, first you'll see the filament come out, then you'll see the coronal mass ejection follow behind it. As it approaches the Earth, these two literally blend together just before impacting the Earth. So that's going to be interesting to watch and see how that plays out over the next couple of days. But I'll go ahead and I'll run this for you. And you could see right here, and then bingo. So they kind of blend together during this impact. I haven't seen something like that in, oh my goodness, many years. I'll stop this here, but you could see the date range here, the 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th. You can see the plasma density spike just a little bit past the 9th of December. And then the velocity starts to pick up after it passes by the Earth. So, that could be a good thing, that could be a bad thing, but right now in our situation, the velocity picking up speed after it impacts Earth is something that I've seen numerous times, many times. So I think in this situation here, that's kind of a good thing, that it picks up velocity as it passes by the Earth and it's behind us. But there will be remnants coming through in the days to come. But I'll go ahead and I'll let this play. I'm going to go ahead and just bring it up just a little bit so I could work the slider here. So I'm going to go ahead and stop it. I'll bring it all the way back. We'll do it in slow motion. So at this point in time, you could see the leading edge right here. So that's between the 8th and the 9th. As we progress a little further, there are already shock waves coming through. I could see them in the spiral graph. So just about as we turn the clock from the 8th to the 9th, we will start to get into this. We're going to start getting hit with those initial shock waves. There was one here, there's one behind it. And you could see just a little after midnight UTC time on the 9th, you could see the spike in the plasma density. And we'll move forward. We'll have a short time between the two. But then, on the back side right here, you'll see the remnants. And bingo. Right here, going into the 10th, you'll see the additional spike. It's not as strong, but it definitely impacts. Dead on bullseye. And then at this point in time, between the 9th and the 10th, you'll see the velocity start to pick up and then level off. And that's showing you right here with my cursor on this green line here. So it's going to be pretty quick. That velocity will pick up. It's showing here, just a little under 800 kilometers per second. Sometimes this model isn't that accurate on that velocity, But as it actually occurs, I'll be checking on it to see what the velocity actually is. So there's the impact right there. So that's a 1, 2, 1, 2. And that's all going to occur between the 8th, 9th, and 10th, and going from the 10th into the 11th. And then things should kind of level off a bit. I have you over here at seeds. We'll go ahead and just blow this up a little bit. And this is the actual coronal mass ejection. This is captured on the SOHO coronagraph, the C2 coronagraph, and it is pretty spectacular. I also have the capture from the cactus, which is even more dramatic. But I'll let you see this, and we'll play it out here. I'll just speed it up just a little bit. It's one hell of an explosion. And as you can see, the halo effect behind the big black circle, the occulter, you can see and you can tell whenever you see those explosions like that where it just fills the entire screen. And it's not directed left or right or up and down. It's directed throughout the whole entire screen. That definitely signifies a halo coronal mass ejection. That's one way to tell. One hell of a show. No doubt about that. Now, during this coronal mass ejection, I ran all of the data through the programs that I have, and I was able to get some of the data very, very late and very, very early this morning, and we do have some pretty significant results, and I will show those to you. And again, folks, you know, it's no coincidence what I'm going to show you and what has occurred. So, you know, the evidence is there continuously, nonstop. Like I said before, folks, there's no way that we could deny that our inner solar system has some new neighbors, and they are affecting our sun, and what happens on the sun affects our little planet that we live on. And that may sound scary. Maybe it is. Maybe it isn't. The future will definitely tell. I'm going to go ahead and jump out of here, and we will look at the earthquake situation right now. So we're over here at the live earthquake tracker. Oops. And I'll go ahead and just broaden this out. And, all of this is current. So we have a 5.1, another 5 here in Chile, a lot of activity here in South America, and little activity up here in the northern Atlantic. Iran, not too much to talk about as far as these magnitude 5s, but the significance is they are all right around the edge of the ring of fire. So you see what we're looking at now today, and let's take a look in 8 hours, and then 12 hours, and then 16 hours, and then 24 hours, and then 36 hours and 48 hours after this, and compare the two. Because it's always been my thought process. It's always been my theory and my hypothesis that these large coronal mass ejections. These are some of the leading causes for these larger earthquakes that the Earth endures. Now scientists are, starting to come out and agree, and, naturally they take the credit for it. It's based on their research. Nobody else's, theirs. But others, like myself, have been talking about it for a half a decade already. But because they have credentials and, they're backed by all of their funding at their universities, well, everybody takes their theories and their hypotheses. Yeah. But anywho, we'll take a look at this earthquake data, in a few hours from now. And maybe you guys can keep track of it for yourselves. And we may see some bigger boomers as far as earthquakes here pretty soon. I'm going to go ahead and blow this up a little bit. We're over here at the stereo core 2. And this is Venus up here in the background, not Planet X. But we were going to try to get some data off of this coronagraph when I noticed something very, very odd. And I'll show you. And all this is showing you now is this coronal mass ejection from the Stereo A Core 2 space satellite. And it's off to the left of the Earth. So the Earth would be right over here where my cursor is. So you can see that explosion was directly pointed towards the Earth. Now, one thing I want to show you guys. I'm going to go ahead back over here. We'll reduce this to its normal size. I'm going to back up. I'm going to change my option from slideshow to images, and we're gonna search the same identical dates. And this is the coronal mass ejection, and this is all frame by frame. Okay, and you could download all of this information, but it's quite a bit of data. One thing I noticed is that I'm not even going to bother downloading all this data and running it through my system, because it seems to me that something's occurred here, whether it be a glitch with the stereo cameras or a human glitch. Notice these super large pixels. They're huge. They're in every single photograph. You see them here? They're huge. They're gigantic pixels. And it just so happens to be this interference, these large pixels, are all within the coronal mass ejection. So if there was something lurking in there, you can get a better view right here. You see how staticky it is? Now, something like that, that staticky view, that kind of does appear with this coronagraph on the Stereo A spacecraft, because it's pretty old. It's been out there for, almost 20 years maybe. So the interference does affect the components. But these large pixels, they're huge. They're not making any sense to me. And they're just in this region. So if there was something there, maybe, just maybe, we would see it. Maybe not. Because it seems to me that that was deliberate. Because with different programs, folks, you can add pixels to, cover up somebody's face. Hell, YouTube even offers that option. If you want to trim a video after you upload it, you can actually pixelize and hide someone's face or whatever you want to hide in the video. So it just seems kind of odd to me that right here, all of these pixels show up. Now I'm going to just pan down. I don't mean to make you dizzy, but I'm going to get down to the coronal mass ejection. So we're starting to get into the coronal mass ejection. The pixelization, these super large pixels, they're even worse. So if anything is there, it's going to be very, very, very hard to detect using this coronagraph. So they may have tried to cover this up on this coronagraph. But before they tried doctoring any images, I've already captured it. I've already documented it. And we're going to go ahead and take a look at it. And I'll show you guys. Now, this was the blast initially. This has to do a lot with radio propagation, and you see where we had all of those earthquakes right along the Ring of Fire, along the western coast of South America, boom, 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 all the way up to Central America, where you could see this was the highest impact. And, we may see some more interference with shortwave radio, ham radio operators, and things of that nature. I don't really follow that too much because that doesn't affect me. But what I did want to show you guys is what I captured the day before. So this would be the first photograph here. So this was on the 6th. What do we have right there? Now, if you go back to 12/6 on the 171 on the SDO, you're going to see something gradually move through and disturb the sun's corona. And it's quick. It goes very fast. But whenever we downloaded that piece of video footage and then turned it into an ultra high definition 4K and then increasing the frames, we were able to capture what you're seeing on your screen right now. And not only in one position, but in two, within the same 48-hour clip. That's pretty damn awesome. Right down here is the sunspot region, 2790, which just exploded and is now hurling that coronal mass ejection towards the Earth. But not only is there an object here on the 6th, I'm going to show you current data during this coronal mass ejection. And we're going to be seeing another object right up in the coronal mass ejection and slightly, just ever so slightly, behind the eastern limb of the sun. And we'll get to that. But let's go ahead and let's look at the blown up versions of this. I got these pictures actually mixed up a little bit. But I believe this is the next one here. It's a little closer. And very, very, you could see a very slight connection. We could zoom in. Just a little bit. You could see a tail end of it. It might not show up in this video on your screens, but I could see just this little small tailing edge. And in the video the video clip itself, you can see that as this object passes through the sun's corona. And it's literally pulling plasma with it as it passes by. It's pretty wild looking. But we'll go ahead and back off of here, and we'll get another close-up view. Actually, we'll hit this view, and we'll zoom in even further. And you know, these views are spectacular. We can actually see, you know, a little bit of detail. I mean, that's incredible. You know, and it makes you wonder. It does make you wonder. And then it's also hard to deny. You don't see any pixels in these photographs, do you? No, you don't. So we could actually, this is a close-up, and I could bring this all the way. You have the sun here. I could bring it right into your living room. No pixels. Yeah, a little blurry. Take into consideration that it's over 93 million miles away, and we're gaining access from a 48-hour video clip from the SDO. Now, as we were looking at this, and I'll go ahead and just pull this back. So this is the view right here at 1545. Right down here, you'll see, oh, that thing keeps bouncing up. 1545, you can see at the bottom on the timeline. Okay. Now, at that 1545, we see the object, let's say at about the 10 o'clock position. Now we can see how this object was moving in what direction. So let me get to that other photograph. Where the hell is it? Oh, here we go here. So 1545, it was up here. At 1816, it's now here. And we can zoom in. Now, unfortunately, it was just about to leave the point of view of the camera on the SDO. And then it did. It just left the actual point of view. But we can clearly see it right there. You could even see around it the separation of the sun's corona as it passes through. And to me, that's a great view. And you see it in the 48-hour loop. It's very, very hard to catch, very, very hard to detect. If you have the proper software, you can download that 48-hour loop. You can increase the frame rate, and you can create an ultra high definition 4K view. And then if you know what you're doing and you have the time, you can go through that frame by frame by frame. And it does take a long time. And then you will see with your own eyes, on your own computer, what I'm showing you. Now, this data has been run through my program that I use to peel back and detect this object. You guys don't have that software. I do. But you will be able to see clearly an object whipping through the corona of the sun, disturbing it, moving it out of place, moving it out of its way as it passes through. Pretty incredible. And, that's the wrong one here. Let's go back over to, okay, we were here. This is just another view of what we just looked at. we could zoom in. And this had some weird detail in it. You know, I don't know what these blemishes are. I couldn't say that they would be craters or anything of that nature because I just don't know. That is just how it appeared. Once the photographs were rendered, that's what came out. Yeah, it does look pretty weird. But it is definitely well within the outer edge of the sun's corona. That is the way that it was passing through. Pretty neat. So that was at 1545. And then that was at 1816. So about 2.25 hours, almost 3 hours. It went from here to here. Notice the angle. As I say, the way that this object travels. And it does go below the sun's ecliptic. It goes below our solar system and slingshots back up. So something has occurred within less than 48 hours. Either this object, which I'm going to show you the photographs now, either this object during its little slingshot movement got itself up over here, and in the next photographs I'm going to show you, created that much of a disturbance, pulled that much plasma as it came across this active region 2790, that it created a massive halo CME. So I'm going to go ahead and we'll pull these up. Let me get to the other one here. This is the first one here. Now this was on 12/7 at 1724:07. This was the beginning phase of this large coronal mass ejection, this halo CME that is now on its way to us here on Earth. What do we see right here? Well, we see it clear as day. There is just a small piece of it right here that is behind the occulter. And let's take a closer look at it. Here's a zoomed in version, and we could zoom in even more. It's a little bit blurry, but very distinctive. Now remember, the piece of photographs, the pieces of photographs that I just showed you, that last one that I referred to, these blemishes, referred to them as, they look like craters, but I can't say for sure. But what do we see here? Here, here, here. Yeah, a little bit over here too. We see the same thing, but just in black and white. So I don't know if that is just part of the imaging or actually part of the damn object itself. Pretty significant for me. I don't know about you guys. So we'll back off there and we'll look at this. Oops. I could zoom in on this a little bit further. This is a zoomed in version. We can zoom in on this, but it may get a little blurry. But you could see these, I don't know, weird markings. One here, here, here. Some discoloration here, a discoloration here, as I outline it here, dark spot here, dark spot there. Very odd. Very odd. Pretty interesting. But if you look at the positioning and what occurred as this object got close to the sun, what happened? Once again, it was able to pull plasma from the sun. The magnetic fields of both the sun and that object interacted, and it literally created the coronal mass ejection that is now headed towards the Earth. Now, we could take a look at this also in a negative format. And in the negative format, it does allow you to see some other things that may have been shaded with this gray coloring. And that's all that the Cactus program comes in, just black, white, and gray. I mean, you could add a filter to it if you want, but sometimes you may cover up something that you're definitely going to want to see. Very interesting. But you could also see these different markings. I don't know what they are, but they're very interesting. And we can go, let me back up here. We could zoom in on this. Now, those markings tend to be a little lighter, but you could see them. I don't know if it's just maybe some of the background. I don't know if it's the actual markings on this object, like craters. I mean, who knows what the hell it is? Still to this day, I've put in, over 22, 23 years of research, and I still do not know what the actual composition of this object is. But I would definitely assume, because of its what seems to be a very strong magnetic field and its interaction with the sun, that it has to have somewhat of a metal or metallic core, or it is, like Dr. Albers has stated many, many times, the core of a dead star, which would be very, very dense and powerful. Even though it's maybe, who knows, I don't know, maybe 1/3 the size of the sun, maybe smaller, probably smaller. But it's definitely powerful. And I'm now really starting to think that periodically, during the Earth's rotation around the sun, we get a different, we actually get a different perspective of this object, because this object and its other possible moons, or whatever the hell they are, I don't know. Nobody knows. We can't definitively say what those are. But as we orbit around the sun, we get different views of this object. But we also interact with this object differently at different times during that 365-day cycle, which we call an orbit around the sun. Now, what I'm talking about is very, very complex. Maybe even hard for some of you to understand. Don't take that as an insult, but I'm picturing it in my mind. So as the Earth is making its cycle around the sun, we're actually getting a different view. And during those different views, the magnetic interaction, the magnetic field interaction between us and that stellar core object varies. Because that object is in a very, very acute, elliptical, and eccentric orbit around the sun. So that would definitely mean that the effects from that stellar core's magnetic field will vary upon the Earth, depending where the Earth is during its 365-day orbital cycle around the sun. I know that may be a little confusing, but it's something that I've been thinking about for quite a long period of time. And you notice, maybe you do, maybe you don't, but within my research over the last several years, and I have mentioned it many, many times, and even going back a few months ago, towards the end of the summer, I told all of you that we are going to have one hell of a ride when we get to the end of the year, November, December, January, and February. Well, here we are. We've seen a very active November. We're in the beginning of December, and look what is happening. Look what is happening. So we're going to be on this ride for a few more months. Then we may have a small period of time, about maybe 3 months, where the activity maybe it will slow down a little bit. But then as soon as we move into June, July, August, September, it's going to heat right back up. Why? Because of what I just explained to you. We are going to be in a different position within our orbit around the sun, and our perspective and the way that this stellar core's magnetic field interacts with the sun and the Earth, we're going to start to see things pop off. And it's going to be a very, very, very active summer for at least 3 to 4 months. Then we'll have a small lull period in the fall. But then we're going to be right back to it in the same cycles. But this cycle, as each year goes by and we move further and further into the solar maximum, that cycle and the intensity is going to increase. So that's something that I'm very leery of. You know, the unknown. A lot of unknown. But, you know, you have to keep poking and researching and prodding and keeping up with your homework, keeping up with your knowledge. Because trust me, folks, that's what they want to take away from you. They want to take away your free thinking. They want to take away your knowledge. We must continue to learn. And you can't learn unless you research and you investigate. That's what I do. But anyways, folks, I'm going to go ahead and, end my stream here. I wanted to share these photographs with you over the last couple of days, and bingo, we have this large coronal mass ejection. I'll probably, update you guys, within 24 hours. If you watch Mark over at Wages World, Mark does a couple of live streams, at least one every day, detailing all of this activity. You could definitely catch him over at Wages World. And we're getting down to that end of the month, December 29th. Dr. Albers is going to be starting her chelation therapy appointments. And, I'm hoping and praying that, all of that, that helps her situation. If any of you would like to make a contribution and help out, because these appointments and this therapy is very expensive, there's a link to our PayPal account if you'd like to make a contribution to help out during that 4 to 6 month period where she's going to be going through these therapy appointments every 2 weeks to rid this mercury poisoning from her bloodstream and help her get back on her feet, literally, and get back to her research. It would be greatly appreciated. If you cannot, hey, no problem. Simply close your eyes, say a prayer for her well-being. That would be greatly appreciated. All right, folks. So listen, I'm going to sign off. These pictures were incredible. And make sure you stay tuned to Planet X News. Take care, folks. Be safe.